Good afternoon and welcome to Channel 44. I am Masi Gashebu to bring you this afternoon's business news live here on Channel 44. I am joined by Livingstone Kawesi for sign language interpretation and translation. Economic experts have urged the government of Uganda to do the budget allocation in key sectors of the economy to avoid unnecessary expenditure. This call has been made by Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, during the 2023 Budget Framework Paper discussion in Kampala, where he expressed his concerns on how every financial year government spends much money compared to what is available in the National Treasury, adding that he's happy that this financial year the government is to consider physical consolidation or budget cuts. Meanwhile, as the country continues to grapple with the challenge of inflation, which stands currently at 10% compared to 2022, where it stood at less than 10%, Bank of Uganda has pledged to fight the current inflation performance from where it is now to 5%. Speaking at the current economic stability and inflation, Agnes Akeo, a business analyst at Central Bank, revealed that they have embarked on increasing the central bank rates as one of the key remedies of addressing the inflation problem, as she further explained some of the factors that have led to the growth of inflation in our nation.
Inflation in Uganda has been very stable. It's been low and stable for over a decade. We only saw inflation begin to rise towards the end of 2022, as shared by the Executive Director CSBAG in this presentation. And we all know why inflation began to rise. First of all, the ED explained that we experienced external shocks. This was explained by the ED and also by my brother here from Ministry of Finance. External shocks arising from the Russia-Ukraine war. We saw fuel prices rising and then feeding into costs of transport and costs of commodities. And also for a good portion of the year there was dry weather conditions, which led to increase in food prices, and all those factors led to an increase in inflation. In order to stem inflation, what has Bank of Uganda done? Of course, it has had to increase the central bank rate. The central bank rate was increased from about 6.5% in April of 2022 to 10% in October. And it has remained at that rate until we next hold our Monetary Policy Committee meeting to review the inflationary developments within the country.
Things, but also there are other four things that we think government can address. On the part of consolidating the good things that are in the budget, number one is the reduction in domestic borrowing. We believe that is very good because we are reducing from 5 trillion to 1 trillion. We are sending a signal to the banks in this country that in the come next financial year, you should lend money more to the private sector than to government. And we are really, that signal has got two major consequences that are likely to come. Number one, the interest rates are likely to come down because now banks are going to start with money and therefore they are likely to reduce the interest rates. But also we are able to see economic recovery because more private sector will be getting loans to generate production and also create employment. So that's one. The important element also that we have seen in this proposal is fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation in our layman language is budget cuts. I think it is a discipline that government must spend. You cut across or you want to cut the court by its size. You should spend the money you have. We are given money and then we return it back to Treasury. We borrow money, we don't even use all of it, and we start paying commitment fees. So that fiscal consolidation is very, 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 very important. And there must be very good criteria to do that.
For joining us, ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Honorable
And the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Baliomonsi, has urged the Japanese community in Uganda to take the advantage of the good political atmosphere by investing in Uganda. Baliomonsi made the call while meeting the Japanese nationals who paid a courtesy visit to the ICT Ministry head office in Kampala, where he explained that Uganda for a very long time has had a good relationship with the Japanese government.
JICA, with you, our friends from Japan, we would want to work together, to collaborate, to see that we learn from you, we learn from each other, and then we continue to improve the quality of life of Ugandans. And we appreciate the partnership that now we have as a ministry with JICA. The business and investment climate and environment in Uganda is very conducive, very supportive, and very friendly. We would want you to take a message back to China that Uganda is the best destination in terms of investment. We have put in place policies and laws which are supportive, and we are a country where, if I use the field of agriculture, that when you throw a seed, even if you close your eyes, it will germinate and grow and be successful. So whether it is the investment in the area of ICT, the area of healthcare, in the area of tourism, business, the environment is very friendly. So we want you to be our ambassadors when you get back to Japan and persuade many more Japanese to come and explore Uganda and we build.
And the National Drug Authority has embarked on a countrywide sensitization of health caregivers and pharmaceuticals within the prison services on how best they can improve their services. Speaking at the official opening of the training in Kampala, Dr. Medad Bitecherezo, who is the National Drug Authority Executive Director, asked the people in the pharmaceutical business to always be careful while administering drugs to patients, and hinted on the dangers that are involved are likely to happen to a person in case he or she has been given a wrong drug. Bitecherezo noted that it's very important to safeguard a person's life by ensuring he's given the rightful drug, explaining why they have begun this campaign with Uganda prisons.
We have invited all healthcare givers in Uganda prisons service, and we have brought the in-charges and the people who are working under them in the entire country to Kampala, and the NDA has sponsored this kind of training because we want them to get very, very, very vast with pharmacovigilance. And what do we mean by pharmacovigilance? Pharmacovigilance here we are trying to say every side effect of any drug given to anybody, be it a prisoner, should be reported so that we can now say, look here, this drug is causing some chaos. Because our work as NDA is to prevent death of any Ugandan out of a side effect of a drug. Point number two, we know that there are some contraindications of some specific medications, and we are saying our healthcare givers should know which are the contraindications of drug X. In other words, which disease conditions must you not give this drug because somebody could be having another underlying problem. And I said a very simple thing. I said there are some drugs you cannot give to a pregnant mother because when you give them to a pregnant mother, these drugs are going to kill the child inside the uterus of the mother. So why should a health worker fail to read and you end up giving somebody a drug when she has got a very small precious child inside her uterus? And I can tell you by doing this one, we shall be encouraging serious reading, we shall be encouraging people being very proactive, whenever they are treating patients. But what has made me very comfortable is these people from prison services, for us as ordinary people, you look at all prisoners as criminals. For them, they look at them as wonderful human beings who can be changed or possibly who can be better citizens even when they leave.
Moving on, vandalism remains a major challenge in Uganda. That one of the major challenges that Uganda is facing, which include causing financial losses to the government in terms of revenue collection. Besides that, when equipments of electricity are destroyed, it leads to power blackouts that affect service delivery like education, health services, and other key areas. Amina Namudu, the senior communications specialist, explains the impact of vandalism.
My name is Amina Namudu. I work at the Electricity Regulatory Authority as a senior communication officer. Vandalism of electricity infrastructure is a very serious issue that affects every Ugandan, whether you have electricity or not. Because in the first place, if you have electricity, that amount is causes us a lot of losses in the sector, and those losses are factored into the end-user tariffs that you pay as the price of electricity. For those who don't have electricity, vandalism frustrates the government's effort to expand the grid and take electricity to other areas of the country to make sure that we have universal access of clean energy in the country. Why is it important for every Ugandan to pay attention to this vice? Because it has serious implications. First, on service delivery, even in other sectors like health, education, because whenever power goes off, there's someone who is going to there's a life that may be lost in the hospital because power is off and they cannot be operated on, or probably they were being operated on and power goes off, and it will take a long period of time for it to be restored. For those in the education sector, there are times that people are probably going to use electricity during evening hours for studying, doing homework, and power goes off. So it is a serious issue. Manufacturing, whenever power goes off, manufacturers have to resort to expensive energy use, for example, use of generators. So whenever there's vandalism, people need to appreciate the implication, first on the tariffs, but also the revenues to the country.
Well, that brings us to the end of the local business news segment. We'll take a very short break, look at today's fuel prices at different fuel pumps. We'll return with international business news. Stay with us. In our international business news today, oil and gas giant Shell has reported record annual profits after energy prices surged last year following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Profits hit $39.9 billion in 2022, double last year's total and the highest in its 115-year history. Energy firms have seen record earnings since oil and gas prices jumped following the invasion of Ukraine. It has heaped pressure on firms to pay more tax as households struggle with rising bills. Opposition parties said Shell's profits were outrageous and the government was letting energy firms off the hook. They also called for the planned increase in the energy price cap that is due in April to be scrapped. Potential car buyers in China have found that an online advert for a luxury sports car was just too good to be true. A Porsche dealership in the city of Yishuan listed the brand new vehicle for 124,000 yuan, which is an equivalent of $18,300. That is just a fraction of what it should have been, and the Panamera has a starting price of $148,000. The promotion attracted hundreds of would-be buyers who rushed to secure what appeared to be a bargain. A spokesperson for the German car maker told the press that the promotion contained a serious mistake in the listed retail price, which was taken down immediately. Apple sales dropped at the end of 2022 as shoppers squeezed by the rising cost of living cut back their purchases. The sales at the iPhone giant fell 5% in the 3 months to December compared with the same period in 2021. It was the biggest decline since 2019 and worse than expected. The update came as many firms warn about a sharp economic slowdown, especially in the tech sector, which boomed during the pandemic. Apple boss Tim Cook said the firm was navigating a challenging environment. In the United Kingdom, the government is set to enter recession this year, but it will be shorter and less severe than previously thought, according to the Bank of England. The slump is now expected to last just over a year, rather than almost 2, as energy bills fall and price rises slow. As a result, fewer people are likely to lose their jobs, but the economy remains fragile, according to a warning from the bank. The forecast comes as interest rates were raised to 4% from 3.5%, their highest level in over 14 years. The bank has been putting up interest rates in a bid to tackle the soaring cost of living. Still in the United Kingdom, King Charles III will now feature on Australia's new $5 note, according to the country's central bank. The new design will pay tribute to the culture and history of indigenous Australians, according to the Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA. A portrait of the late Queen Elizabeth II appears on the current design of the $5 note. The Queen's death last year reignited debates about Australia's future as a constitutional monarchy. This decision by the Reserve Bank Board follows consultation with the Australian government, which supports this change, according to a statement released by the bank. The U.S. Central Bank has raised interest rates again as it continues to fight to stabilize prices in the world's largest economy. That marks the smallest. The Federal Reserve said it was raising its key rate by 0.25 percentage points. That marks the smallest increase since last March, after a series of aggressive rate hikes last year. Officials warned that they did not think they were finished raising rates, despite signs that price increases in the U.S. are slowing. The bank's moves are closely watched around the world as the U.S. drives a global shift after years of low interest rates that followed the financial crisis. Well, we'll now take a very short break, look at today's financial highlights. We'll return with more international business news. Stay with us. Moving on, a new 2,000 peso banknote will be issued in Argentina in response to soaring inflation, according to the country's central bank that revealed this in a confirmation. The new note, which will be worth $11, officially comes after consumer prices jumped by nearly 95% in the 12 months to the end of December. It marks Argentina's fastest pace of inflation since 1991. The largest current bill, the 1,000 peso note, is worth just $2.70 on the alternative markets. Writing on Twitter, the BCRA said the new note would commemorate the development of science and medicine in Argentina. A U.S. research firm's allegations of fraud against billionaire Gautam Adani's business empire have sparked a political row in India. Opposition leaders told the functioning of Parliament for a second straight day on Friday as they demanded an investigation into the claims. The research firm accused the Adani Group firms of stock manipulation and financial fraud last week, sending its shares into a sharp fall. The group has denied the allegations. Today, during the morning sessions in both houses of India's parliament, they were adjourned as opposition leaders demanded an investigation. And finally, a California utility giant must face trial for manslaughter for its role in a 2020 wildfire that killed 4 people, according to a ruling by a state judge. It is the latest legal battle, a trouble for Pacific Gas and Electric, which has been blamed for a series of deadly wildfires in the state in recent years. A judge found prosecutors had presented enough evidence during a preliminary hearing for the company to stand trial. PG&E, the state's biggest utility provider, has pleaded not guilty. The company is scheduled to appear at a hearing on the 15th of February, where the judge is expected to set a trial date. Well, that brings us to the end of today's business news. I remind you that tonight there is going to be a miracle overnight. Bring the sick, bring the lame, bring all those that need the hand of God. The presence of God is always present to make our lives different and never the same again. I also remind you that we are still helping the people of Karamoja. Come and join us. Come for the overnight with your seed. Alternatively, you can send it to the numbers that will be availed during the services, or you can bring it at the Miracle Center Church reception and be given a receipt for accountability, and your life will not remain the same again. Well, the Big Tunes program is up next. Stay tuned to Channel 44 and have a lovely evening.